Have you ever felt like someone's watching you while you sleep? In the Viking Age, that wasn't paranoia. It was protocol. Tonight, you're not just going to listen to a story. You're going to live in a world where the dead come back because they forgot to give you a message, where an axe can hold a grudge, and where a simple tree might decide you won't wake up tomorrow. You'll be born into a village where even the stones have opinions, and sleep is an act of bravery. Everyone believes in spirits, signs, shadows, and crows that only show up when something bad is about to happen. And guess what just landed on the roof? But wait, before you lie down, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there, just so I know who'll still be awake when the dead start walking. Now, turn off the lights, put your phone aside, maybe turn on a fan, or listen to that weird buzzing coming from the hallway, who knows? And get ready to be reborn in a world where beliefs are cold, deep, and keep walking long after you're gone. You were born on a starless night. The cold slices through the air like a scream that never finishes, and the smell of damp straw fills everything. Around you, whispers, names, runes scratched with fingers dirty from fear. Your first cry doesn't scare anyone. On the contrary, relief. You weren't born silent. Silence, they say, attracts spirits. A crow lands on the roof. He came to see. The midwife murmurs. She doesn't look into your eyes. No one does. Only the crow. Your name doesn't come from a wish or a tribute. It comes from a dream. Your mother, still trembling, says she saw a shadow by the river 3 nights before your birth. A man without a face. He held an unlit torch. So your name will be Asvar, one who carries fire in the dark. A heavy name for such a small body. On the first night, you sleep wrapped in sheepskin and sprinkled with herbs. There's a river stone under your pillow to keep away wandering spirits. Beside you, an old axe. Rusted, your father says it belonged to your grandfather. But no one knows which one. In your early years, you grow up surrounded by stories. Stories whispered by the fire. Stories never told aloud. Stories that feel far too alive to be made up. Your world has no books. It has teeth, ice, and fear. And the deepest fear isn't pain. It's what comes after it. You learn early that there are things you should never do. Don't look at your shadow at dusk. Don't speak the names of the dead after sundown. Don't leave food facing north. Never sleep with your feet uncovered. You don't understand any of it, but you don't question it either, because sometimes, when you're almost asleep, ... something feels like it's watching. At 4 years old, you dream of wolves. Always wolves. Sometimes one is inside your house. Other times, it's inside you. Your mother says this is good. It means you have a Philgia. She protects you, but she can devour you too. You learn to pray, but not like today. No clasped hands, no talk with the sky. Your prayer is a held breath, a glance to the ground, a stone turned to the east. Prayer is avoidance. Avoiding the gaze of those between worlds. You start to understand there's more than cold and snow. There are eyes in the wind, names that mustn't be spoken, spirits that live in objects, and a place called hell, where those who die lying down, who flee from pain, who die without honor, are sent. You don't know what honor means yet, but you already feel it. Sleeping is a risk. Dreaming, almost an invitation to death. You are 10 years old when your uncle dies. Not in battle, not by blade, not from fever or hunger or gods. He simply dies, one night, alone, in a house that didn't want him. They say it happened quietly, that he lay down facing west, with his hands folded wrong, that his mouth was still open when the neighbors found him, and that no one was brave enough to close it. Your cousin says she hears his axe at night, not his voice, not his feet, just the axe, dragging slowly across dirt, clicking against stone, like it's looking for its next grip. The elders don't bury the weapon. They say it's better to give the dead what they touched in life. So they place the axe beside him, wrap it in his old tunic, and whisper something none of the children are allowed to hear. They don't burn the house, but they don't live in it anymore either. Instead, your aunt leaves bread on the threshold. Every week, she doesn't say why. When you ask, she only says not to feed him, just to keep him full enough not to come back. This is when you begin to understand. Not everything dies when it should. Not everything that stays is welcome. You learn the rules. Some are spoken, most are not. Don't whistle after sunset. Don't. Let your shadow touch someone who's mourning. Asterisk. Don't sleep with your mouth open. Never thank a gift too quickly. It might mean you've accepted more than you realize. Your village isn't haunted, but it is full of memory, full of eyes in the dark, full of names you're not supposed to speak unless you're prepared to meet them again. Some animals are sacred, some are cursed. The difference is blurry. You never kill owls. Never touch them, even if they fall from the sky. You don't eat white goats. Even when the winter is long, you don't point at a fox. If one crosses your path, you must turn around, retrace your steps, and spit over your left shoulder. Not because of luck, but because of what follows foxes. Your grandmother says some animals are old people in disguise. Not ancestors, not spirits. Just very tired souls who didn't like the afterlife and came back in bodies that no one would. Question. You laugh once she doesn't. Your family has a spirit. Everyone knows a Philgia, a kind of guardian, maybe. A she-wolf with red eyes. No one's ever seen her in daylight, but everyone swears she walked behind the house at night. She never howls, just watches. Some say she brings warnings. Some say she brings hunger. One night, you see her, or think you do, a shape near the edge of the woods, almost blending into the snow. Your little brother sees her too. He doesn't sleep for days after. A month later, he breaks his arm. 2 weeks. After that, he nearly drowns. The village healer says it's coincidence. Your grandmother says it's a reminder. Some spirits are kind, some are confused, and some are just old, tired, forgetful. These are the ones who come inside your dreams, not to frighten you, but to sit beside your bed and hum songs from before. You were born, your mother tells you never to accept a gift without knowing where it came from. One day, a merchant gives you a carved bone figure, a small human shape, arms folded, eyes wide. You show it to your mother. That night she throws it into the fire. She doesn't ask permission, doesn't explain. It wasn't carved. She says it was taken. You don't ask from whom some things are born cursed. Others become cursed through blood, or grief, or loneliness. A comb made from the hair of a drowned woman. A knife used in 3 murders and never washed. A cradle carved by a child who disappeared before their 7th name day. These things aren't destroyed. They are buried, hidden, passed along to those who don't know any better, because even ashes can whisper. Even broken wood remembers the hands that held it. Even fire doesn't always erase intention. You begin to fear objects more than people. A clay bowl that makes water taste like copper. A fur cloak that never dries, no matter how close it lies to the fire. A door that opens by itself, but only when no one is looking. Your neighbor finds a ring in a snowdrift, keeps it. 3 days later, her cow dies. 5 days later, her daughter wakes up speaking in a voice no one recognizes. The ring is thrown into the river. The river freezes early that year, and the fish don't return until spring. There are stories you are not allowed to hear until your 12th winter. And even then, some are only told after dark, with the door barred and the fire. Strong, you listen. You remember, because forgetting is a kind of invitation. It begins with a dream. You are 11, maybe 12. Age is a blur in the long winter, and you wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, hair damp, mouth dry. You dreamed of a tree with no roots. It floated, somehow above the earth, spinning slowly. Beneath it, people without faces stared upward and screamed without sound. Their hands were full of feathers. Your hands were full of blood. You don't tell anyone. The next morning, your father announces that your cousin drowned in the river. He'd gone alone. He was afraid of the dark, they say, but not of water. Your mother finds you staring at the fire. Did you see something? She asks. You nod. She doesn't ask what. She just puts salt under your pillow that night and tells you not to eat anything until the sun is overhead. From that day on, your dreams are never entirely yours. In your village, dreams are treated like warnings, like weather, like signs from gods too distant to speak clearly. They are not secrets, they are tools, sometimes weapons. Old women ask you what you saw last night, not out of kindness, but out of caution. The village Sikona, who wears bones around her neck and smells of burnt herbs, begins to visit your home more often. She looks at you with squinted eyes, as if you're already becoming something else. There are rules about dreams, just as there are rules about spirits. Dreams of fire mean change. Dreams of broken teeth mean betrayal. Dreams of flying mean death is nearby someone else's, or maybe your own. And if you dream of your own death 3 nights in a row, the elders say you should not sleep a 4th. You start to fear sleep, not because of nightmares, but because of what you might reveal to yourself, to others, to something watching. There are stories of people who never woke up, not because their hearts stopped, but because their spirits simply didn't come back. They wandered too far. The Sakona says some minds are too open, too light, easy to lift. She gives you a small stone, black and smooth, to sleep with on. Your chest, weight helps, he says. Sometimes you try, you really try. But sometimes, even with the stone, your dreams stretch out like long roads. Roads that don't lead anywhere you recognize. And sometimes, something follows you along those roads. One night, you wake up sitting, not lying in bed, sitting, facing. The window you don't remember moving. Your sister says she saw you speaking in a language no one taught you. Your mother burns sage and sprinkles water from the sacred spring across the floor. No one speaks of it again. But from then on, someone always stays awake while you sleep. In time, you learn of hell. Not fire, not punishment. Hell is colder than all of that. Hell is silence. It is a place for those who die the wrong way, not fighting, not standing, not facing the sky. It is for the weak, the uncertain, the ones who sleep through their deaths. In hell, your soul forgets how to move. You wander beneath the grey sky that never changes. You forget your name. You forget your face. You forget why you were afraid in the first place, and that is the final loss. They say that cowards arrive lying down, that their arms become heavy, that their eyes stay open but never blink. They see everything but understand nothing, and they stay like that forever. The idea doesn't scare you at first, but it grows. It grows each time someone you know dies in their sleep. Each time someone whispers that the burial was too quiet, that there were no crows, that the fire didn't burn fast enough. You begin to notice the signs, how people avoid speaking the names of those who went to hell, how their graves are colder, their stones covered faster in moss, how no one leaves offerings there, because no one wants to invite that kind of silence into their home. You start sleeping on your side, then on your back, then on the floor, head facing east, mouth closed, arms crossed, the way the warriors do, just in case. There are ways, they say, to bargain with fate, to trick the gods into thinking you died bravely. Some smear ash on their faces before battle, pretending to have burned. Some shout their own names as they die, so the world remembers them. You try to be brave. You try to be strong. But deep down, what terrifies you most is not dying. It's dying forgotten, dying quietly, dying in sleep, and one night, after a dream too strange to describe, you wake to find frost on your eyelashes, though there was no frost outside. Your sister won't speak to you that day. Your mother weeps into the fire, and you wonder, was it a dream or a rehearsal? The first time you truly hear the wind, you're alone. You've heard it before, of course, rattling, rooftops, slipping under doors, whining through the trees. But this is different. This wind doesn't move. It stands still, and inside it, ... something breathes. You are 14. You've been told not to go out after dusk, especially not into the forest. But you're old enough now, strong enough, stubborn, enough to ignore the rules that once wrapped around you like blankets. So you go into the trees. into the thin mist that clings to your ankles like fingers. You hear the wind, but the trees aren't moving. You feel the cold, but no snow falls. And then voices, not clear, not loud, not even words really. Just a rhythm, like someone reciting a memory, over and over, behind your ear, inside your chest, in the gaps between your thoughts. You don't run, you don't scream, you just stop and listen, because deep down you know what this is. The old stories say the wind can carry souls. Not always, not often, but sometimes, when the sky is too heavy and the earth is too tired, the wind takes over. It gathers the ones who were never buried right, the ones who weren't mourned properly, the ones who left behind unfinished words. They ride the air like smoke. They follow the cold. They slip into chimneys and through cracks in the walls. They whisper in places no one looks. You stand there, breathing as quietly as you can, and feel them pass through you. They don't hurt, but they don't ask permission either. You return home with your hair full of pine needles and your eyes too wide. Your grandmother knows immediately. She doesn't scold. She just places a bowl of ash and water at your feet and tells you to step in, 1 foot at a time. Now they'll forget where you live, she says. The next day, your dog won't come. Near you, the next night, your dreams are blank. Not empty, but scrubbed. Clean in a way that feels unnatural. Too quiet, you'll learn more stories about men who followed a strange wind too far and returned missing parts of themselves. One came back mute, another unable to recognize his own mother. A third returned, laughing and never stopped, even when he starved. There's a field beyond your village where no one plants anymore. The soil is good, the water is clean, but every year, just after the last snow melts, the wind there hums. A low, tuneless hum, like someone trying to remember a melody from a past life. When you're 15, your friend disappears. He'd gone to gather firewood just before a storm. People say the wind took him. A week later, his father hears his voice, soft and hoarse, calling from behind the house. But when he opens the door, there's no one there. They leave bread and salt outside for 3 nights. After that, they stop talking about him. You begin to notice the places where the wind feels wrong. Not just cold, but curved. Bending around corners it shouldn't. Carrying smells from nowhere. Once, it brings the scent of burning feathers. Another time, it smells like the inside of a closed room. A room where someone died alone. Your mother teaches you to hang feathers over the door. Not for beauty, for direction. If they move when there's no wind, she says, don't open anything. One night, the wind speaks your name. It's faint, from outside. No one else hears it, but you do. You freeze. You breathe through your teeth. You recite the names of your ancestors in your head. You don't answer. You don't sleep. And in the morning, you find dirt on your WINDOWSILL. The Sakona visits again. She brings smoke and stone and murmurs too fast to understand. She ties a knot in a strip of cloth and tells you to keep it under your tongue when the wind rises. You do, and it tastes like metal. Not long after, a funeral is held in the village. A woman died suddenly, alone in her hut. The wind had been high that day. No one is surprised. At the burial, someone asks if her name was ever spoken after she passed. No one knows, so they say it again. Loud, firm. They hammer it into the ground with her gravestone. Because if the wind forgets your name, it can carry your soul forever. Never stopping, never settling, never letting you go. You are 16 now. You sleep with your face turned toward the wall. You stuff herbs in your pillow. And when the wind rises, you listen, not to understand, but to count dot. To make sure there aren't more voices than there should be. Death, in your world, is not the end. It's a negotiation, the first time you see a body that doesn't stay. Still, you are 17. It isn't dramatic. No glowing eyes, no moaning spirit, no screaming villagers. Just ... movement. A twitch of the hand, a slight shift of the mouth. The old man had been dead 2 days, wrapped in wool, waiting for the ground to soften after the frost. And then the hand moved. No one panics, no one cries. They just act fast. The Sakona is called Saltist. Thrown, the body is turned to face the wall. Stones are placed on the chest. One by one, heavy. Final dot, you help carry the stones. You don't speak. Later, someone whispers, he wasn't ready. Something was still holding on. You don't ask what. You already know the stories. In the long dark, some bodies forget they're supposed to stay dead. They rise, not to haunt, but to continue. They eat, walk, hurt, laugh. They are called Draugr, not ghosts, not demons, just people who refused. It starts slow, a noise in the rafters, a footstep that shouldn't be there, meat rotting too quickly, animals avoiding certain corners of the yard. When the signs are clear, action must be taken. First, the body is exhumed. Then, the grave is salted. The corpse is turned on its stomach, so if it tries to rise, it only digs deeper. In some cases, the head is removed. In others, the legs are broken. And sometimes, the mouth is filled with ash and crushed bone, so it cannot speak curses in the night. You help, once. A young woman who died in childbirth. The baby didn't survive. For 3 nights after the burial, her husband heard crying from under the floor. The grave was shallow, too close, too hurried. You hold the torch as they dig. She is pale, but dry. Her eyes are open. Her hands are clenched. The Sakona mutters. She's listening. They finish the rites. The crying stops. Afterward, no one speaks of her again. But her husband never sleeps inside the house. He builds a shed, sleeps with his back to the wall, always facing the door. You learn more about how some people are buried with weights on their chests, not to punish, but to pin them to this world, just enough that they don't bounce into another. About how some families bury their dead with blades not for protection, but to satisfy the body's memory of violence. About how some graves are dug at angles, so the soul gets confused and walks in circles underground forever. It is not cruelty. It is safety. You hear a story from a traveler of a village far east where they bury the dead standing up, facing a wall of rock, so they will not look back. Another tale tells of a woman who had to be buried 5 times. Each time she came, back colder, not angrier, not louder, just ... colder. Like the world no longer meant anything. You begin to look at graves differently. You notice which ones have offerings and which ones don't. Which ones are always tidy and which ones have grass that never grows. You notice a plot near the edge of the woods that no one mentions. There's no name, just a stone cracked down the middle. Your friend says someone's buried there who was never mourned. That every few winters the stone must be reset. And that once it was found 30 steps away from where it was placed. You visit once, just to see. You feel nothing, but your foot aches that night. A deep pain, as if you'd stepped wrong into something old. The body remembers, soul lingers, and sometimes, if death is not done right, both become confused. The Sakona tells you of a ritual you hope to never see, a ritual where a body is burned 3 times, each flame fed with a different wood, each ash buried in a separate place, so no part can reassemble. She says this is done only for the worst kinds of people, or the most beloved, because both have reasons to come back. You ask her what makes a soul restless. She says, regret, rage, hunger, and sometimes ... just habit. That night, you dream of yourself lying in a grave, not afraid, just awake. You try to sit up, but something holds you. You think it's a stone, but then it moves, and you wake up with dirt under your nails. You're 19 when you carve your first rune. Not a name, not a word, just a symbol, something between breath and thought, cut into the handle of a tool. It's a rite of passage. No one tells you what to carve. You're supposed to listen to the wood. Let it tell you what belongs. You do it small, simple, angled like a question with no answer. When you're done, you feel ... watched. Not in a bad way, just ... Noticed you run your fingers over the mark, and the handle feels warmer. From that day on, the axe cuts straighter, doesn't splinter as much. You don't tell anyone, but you keep carving. You learn that runes aren't just writing, they're alive. Each one holds something meaning. Power, memory. They don't just tell, they change. The Sakona teaches you more, shows you the ones for protection, for silence, for confusion, for memory. She warns you, never use the rune for hunger. It's always hungry. She tells you a story of a boy who carved a rune into his own skin to make himself brave. It worked, but the courage didn't stop. He ran into every fire, every fight, until there was nothing left of him but a scream. You believe her. You keep your carvings to wood and bone. You avoid blood. Usually, you begin to notice things. Your knife never rusts, because of a rune you scratched under the leather sheath. Your shoes never wear at the heel, thanks to a line of small marks burned into the sole. You lose your temper once, carve a rune of rage into the doorframe. It creaks for weeks. Every time someone walks by, it groans like it remembers something unpleasant. You start to understand that objects are not passive. A comb that belonged to your great-grandmother always finds its way back to the same drawer, no matter where it's left. A pot that once boiled over during a funeral never boils calmly again. A necklace worn during a birth tightens slightly around the neck on stormy nights. These are not curses, they are echoes, the memory of materials. Stone remembers pressure, iron remembers blood, wood remembers hands. You make your own talisman, not for luck, but for clarity. You carve it from the bone of a sheep that died peacefully in its sleep. You wear it around your neck with twine and ash. When you put it on, your breathing slows. The world doesn't get quieter, you just hear what matters. The Sakona says, good, that means it knows you. You hear of talismans made from stranger things. A fishbone pulled from a man's throat. A ring that belonged to a widow who never wept. A spoon bent by someone who spoke only lies. Each one wrapped, blessed, hidden, or passed from hand to hand until no one remembers where. It came from, only what it does. Some are dangerous. A piece of antler that burns when held. A coin that makes your dreams louder. A pouch of dirt that, when opened, smells like the grave of someone you once loved. You're taught to respect them. Never burn them. Never break them. Only bury. Deep dot, and always with something sweet. You learn about binding, the practice of tying a soul to an object. Not forever, just long enough to learn something, or protect, or trap. A warrior might bind his luck to a stone and carry it into battle. A mother might bind her child's name to a button sewn into their clothing. A widow might bind her grief to a stick and cast it into the river, letting the water carry it away. You try, once you bind your anger to a rock, wrap it in wool, bury it under the hearth. The next morning, the fire won't light. Your father digs it up, doesn't say a word, tosses it into the forest. The fire returns. You don't try again. You learn that names, too, are bindings. That's why newborns aren't named for days, sometimes weeks. To wait, to see what their soul needs, to avoid choosing wrong. Some say that a name given too quickly is like a leash on the wrong dog. You wonder about your own name, Asvar, the one who carries fire in the dark. You didn't choose it, but you feel it, especially in your hands, especially when you carve. One night, you carve a rune you've never seen before. It comes to you in a dream. When you wake, you draw it on bark, then on bone. When you show it to the Sakona, she doesn't speak. She turns it over, whispers, then burns it. Never use that one, she says. But she doesn't explain why. You remember the shape. You try not to, but it's there, sometimes. In the ash, in the grain of wood, in the patterns frost makes on your window. You don't carve it again, but it knows you did. And sometimes, that's enough. Some trees are just trees. Others are listening. You're 20 now, and your village is preparing for the longest night of the year. The night when the sky feels like a closed lid, and even the moon hides behind breathless clouds. On this night, no one lights fires after sundown. No metal is touched. No one whistles. And the sacred grove is left alone, except for one. You are chosen, not for greatness, not for honor, just because the lot fell to you. The last time your name was drawn, you were a child. They gave you a small rock to carry to the stream. This time, They give you a blade and a bowl. You will go into the grove, alone. You will find the tree with the red bark. You will press your palm to it, whisper your family's name, and make the offering. You do not ask what happens if you refuse. The grove is not far, but it feels like days. The trees shift as you walk. Not with wind, there is none, but with memory, the path curls. Stones appear where none were before. Shadows double back. You've come here before, but tonight it's different. You find the tree. It's taller. Then you remember. Its bark peels and strips like old flesh, revealing layers of dark crimson underneath. It smells like smoke and honey. You press your hand to it. It's warm. You speak your name, your family's name. You feel your heart beat slow. You raise the blade. The cut is small enough to fill the bowl. The blood steams in the cold. When you pour it at the base of the tree, the ground doesn't. Drink it. It stays. Glows slightly. Thick as sap. You hear a creak. Not wind. Wood. Stretching or waking. You return before dawn. No one asks what you saw. They only check that the bowl is empty. You learn that trees are not just part of the world. They are witnesses, older than memory. Some trees, they say, remember. The first scream ever heard. Others remember who buried what beneath them. Some remember nothing, and that makes them dangerous. In spring, children are taught which trees to climb and which to avoid. A tree with moss only on one side is safe. A tree with moss all the way around, too alive, too alert. A tree with twisted branches that seem to point inward. No, you hear a story of a man who fell asleep beneath one such tree. When he woke, he spoke backwards for the rest of his life. Another story tells of a girl who planted a flower near a certain stump. The flower grew eyes. You. Stop sitting under trees. Just in case. Offerings are part of life now. Not just at festivals or deaths. They are woven into your week. Bread left on a stump after a good hunt. Milk poured into the river when your sister recovers from illness. Hair buried at the edge of the field before the harvest. Small things, but important. You learn what each offering means. Honey for forgiveness, ash for memory, blood for protection, water for forgetting. You wonder what forgetting tastes like. You begin to notice who forgets to offer, who pretends, whose crops grow smaller each year, whose animals go missing, asterisk, who walks slower, who blinks too often, like their eyes are hiding something inside. The Sikona says some people stop offering because they think they've outgrown fear. But fear isn't the point. Respect is. Fear comes after. You try to stay consistent. One night, you forget. You have a nightmare. You're walking through the grove. The trees are upside down. Their roots reach into the sky. Their leaves are made of skin. One tree opens its trunk and speaks with your voice. It says your name wrong. It tells you you're already buried. It asks who you forgot. You wake with bark in your mouth. You return to the grove the next day. Offer twice, say nothing. The wind is still. You take that as forgiveness. Later your friend tells you he offered a part of his memory once. He buried it under a birch tree, hoping to forget the war. It worked. But now, he doesn't remember his wife's face either. He visits the tree sometimes, just stands there, hoping it will give something back. You wonder what the trees take in exchange. You notice one tree in particular near your home. It's crooked, leans forward, as if trying to hear. You once carved your name into it as a child. The mark is still there, but the letters are deeper now, more carved than you remember. You don't touch it anymore. You pass it with your head. Down, offer a pebble now and then, a whisper, a hum, something to let it know. I still remember, even if it remembers more. You have known of battles since you were small, stories told in half whispers beside fires, bodies turned into sagas, deaths turned into legends. But now, at 21, you are no longer a listener. You are a participant. You will fight, not for glory, not for revenge, because it is time. No one asks if you are ready. That is not how readiness works here. You don't train for war. You prepare. And preparation is not about weapons. It is about soul. Your axe is old, passed down, carved with runes, wrapped in your grandfather's hair, polished with pine resin and blood. Not yours, not yet. Before you carry it into battle, you must introduce yourself. You sleep with the axe under your pillow. You speak to it. Tell it what you fear. You pour water on its blade and watch what the droplets do. If they run smooth, the axe accepts you. If they stay still, beware. Yours run smooth. You wear no armor. Armor is rare, heavy, distrusting. If the gods mean for you to die, they will find a way. You do wear a talisman, a tooth, tied with sinew, soaked in ashdot. The night before battle, no one eats. The fire is allowed to die. Everyone sits in silence. Each warrior is left alone for a time. Some pray, some scream. One sits in water until his skin puckers. You were told to think of your ancestors, not just their victories, but their regrets. Do not carry shame into battle, says the Sakona. It sticks to the blade. So you confess, not out loud, not to anyone, to the earth. You kneel, press your forehead to stone, and name what you've done. The lies, the stolen fish, the cruel word you threw at your brother. Small things, but real when you rise. The stone is warm. That's enough. In the morning, you are marked. Ash on your brow, oil on your wrists. A small cut behind the ear to let out what shouldn't follow you into war. You are warned not to look back when you leave, not to say goodbye, not to whistle. There are sacrifices, not animals, not always. A ring is burned, a carving of a ship. One man cuts off a lock of hair and buries it. Another breaks his own finger and leaves it in the fire. Better now than after, he says. No one laughs. You march, feet silent, eyes forward, voices low. You feel ... strange, not afraid, not exactly brave either, more like floating. The Sakona says that's normal. It means your spirit has stepped slightly outside your body, preparing to leave if needed. You hear a chant from the front, a low rhythm breath, and breath and breath. It fills the air like smoke. You join in. By the time you reach the edge of the woods, you feel weightless. The first clash is chaos. You do not remember how many you struck, only that your arms ached and your feet found blood before your eyes did. You are not hurt, but something inside you is quieter now, different. Afterward, you are not allowed to return home immediately. First, you must be cleansed. You undress, stand in cold water, rub ash across your chest, spit into the fire. You must not speak of what you saw, not until the fire chooses to speak first. That night, it crackles. You nod. Later, you bury your axe for one night. Let it rest. Let it forget. In your dreams, you see a fox with a face like yours. It smiles and vanishes. The next morning, your axe feels lighter, sharper. You survived. But the you that returned, isn't quite the same as the one who left. And that's exactly how it should be. There is a man in your village who doesn't blink. He walks with a limp, speaks rarely, eats with his hands even when spoons are offered. His eyes are pale, not blind, just distant, like they're still seeing something from long ago. He doesn't work. He doesn't sleep indoors. He is a berserker. As a child, you were warned not to stare. Now, you're old enough to understand. Why? The berserkers are not warriors. They are something else. They don't fight with strategy or training. They enter battle with foam on their lips, growls in their throat, and silence behind their eyes. They don't wear armor. They don't speak before fighting. And when the war drums start, they strip down to fur and scars and run. You've seen it once. During a raid, he screamed once, not out, but inward, as if something inside him snapped like a bone. Then he charged. The sound was not human. The movements weren't either. He climbed walls, tore through shields, didn't stop when the fighting ended. It took 3 men to hold him down, after not to save others, but to stop him from tearing at his own throat. The Sikona says they are touched, by Odin, not blessed, touched, chosen to carry the madness that others cannot afford. It is said that to become a berserker, one must be willing to disappear, not die. Disappear to shed your name, your memories, your voice, to trade reason for rage, to let the gods borrow your body and hope they return it. No one chooses this. It chooses you. Some say it begins with a dream. Others say it's a sickness, a fire that starts in the belly and spreads to the teeth. You speak to the berserker. Once, not with words, you sit beside him during a storm. He hands you a piece of raw meat. You take it, eat in silence. Later, he nods. That is all. You learn of rituals, how they prepare. They fast for days, bury their names, inhale smoke from plants that grow near graves. Some rub themselves with animal fat, others with ashes of old warriors. One carved a wolf's jaw into his own chest. They do not drink water before battle, only blood or nothing. They say this empties the soul, makes it easier to fill with something else. You hear stories of berserkers who fought long after death, bodies cut open, still swinging, of one who bit through a man's skull, of another who could not stop screaming for a full moon cycle. He was buried under stone, alive. His grave is visited once a year, not to mourn, to remind. You ask the Sakona if berserkers go to Valhalla. She doesn't answer, just looks away. Later, someone says, they don't go anywhere, they stay. You believe it. One night, you wake with your hands clenched. Your mouth tastes of copper. Your dreams were filled with wolves and drums. You check your skin, no cuts, but your nails are shorter. You begin to wonder, what if rage isn't borrowed, inherited? What if madness runs not in blood, but in bone? You see the berserker again. He is staring at the fire, smiling. The wind howls, and he tilts his head like he's listening to an old friend. You realize something. He is not waiting for peace. He is waiting for permission. Because one day, the drums will sound again. And when they do, he won't need armor, won't need a reason, just the silence behind his eyes. And the gods whispering, run, you are older now. Not old like the elders. Their faces cracked like tree bark. Their voices brittle with smoke, but old enough to feel time in your knees, in your ribs, in your dreams. The world around you is changing, quietly, at first, then faster. You notice it in small things. The way people stop leaving offerings after the first frost. How fewer names are whispered to the wind. How the children no longer fear the woods. They play there, laugh there, mock the trees that once listened. Something has shifted, and yet you still hear the wind speak. You still avoid that grave with the cracked stone. You still carve runes. When your heart feels heavy, but fewer do. And that makes the world feel thinner. You begin to think more of death. Not with fear, but with familiarity. Like an old friend whose letter arrived too early, but waits patiently for your reply. Your hands don't hold tools as steady. Your legs ache after too many steps. The nights feel longer, not darker, just deeper. You ask yourself often, will I be remembered? Will I return in dreams? Or will I be forgotten, like the spirits who linger in wind no one hears anymore? One morning, a child in the village asks what happens when we die. His father says, you rest. You say nothing, because rest is complicated. You know of hell, of the slow place, of the grey sky and the forgetting. You have seen the signs, too many stones with no names, too many graves with cold earth that never warms again. You know the rules. Die in battle, with your face to the wind, Valhalla. Die in fear, in sleep, in silence, hell. But what of those who die slowly, who fade? No one speaks of them. Maybe they become mist. Maybe they drift between places, never heavy enough to fall, never light enough to rise. Maybe you will be one of them. You begin to prepare. You clean your tools, sharpen your axe, not for use, but for memory. You bury small offerings in the corners of your home, pebbles, ash, a lock of your own hair. You write your name in runes behind the hearthstone. You hope the fire remembers you. One day, you feel something shift inside your chest. Not pain, not fear, just ... release. You sit under your favorite tree, the one that leans, the one that knows your name. You close your eyes, you breathe, you dream of the river, but it flows backward. Of birds, but they sing your name wrong. Of your father's voice calling from under the ice. You wake, but the world feels slower, heavier, like it's beginning to let go of you. The Sakona visits. She brings no smoke, no chants, only silence. She sits beside you, waits. When she leaves, she says, "You're almost done." You ask her, "Where?" "Do I go?" she says. "Depends on who remembers you." You think of your sister's laughter, of your mother's stone bowl, of the axe under your bed. You wonder if they are enough. You wonder if the gods still listen. You wonder if it matters. That night, you lie down on your side, just like you were taught. Head to the east, mouth closed, arms crossed, just in case you do not sleep. You drift, somewhere between dream and wind, between fire and frost, between name and nothing. You did not die, at least not in the way everyone expected. You are not buried, you are not burned, you are not remembered, not yet. You are simply ... here ... alive, older, watching. There is a strange silence in surviving. A heaviness that comes from watching everything you believed in shrink. Not vanish, not explode, but simply become ... smaller . The offerings stopped first. No more bread at the roots. No more salt at the threshold. No more ash in the water. Then the stories changed. The villager became metaphors. The Draugr became myths. The trees stopped whispering, or maybe people just stopped listening. The children ask questions now, but not the right kind. They ask how many people you've killed, what battles you fought, what gods you worship. You tell them stories, but you soften the edges. You leave out the blood that wouldn't dry. You leave out the dreams that bite. You leave out the scream you still hear when the wind rises just right. You sit by the fire now, not to warm your hands, but to keep the cold of forgetting away. Your bones hurt, not from age, but from memory. There is a sadness in outliving your own meaning, in seeing the symbols you carved treated like decoration, in hearing your name pronounced wrong, in knowing that someday someone will say, "They say he used to talk to trees," and they'll laugh. You remember the berserker. He's gone now. No one remembers his name, only that he was wild. They've made him a character in their games, a hero with fur and rage and no soul. But he had a soul. You saw it once, in the quiet moment after a storm, when he fed a bird from his hand and whispered, "Fly better than me." You didn't tell anyone. You still haven't. Because no one wants the truth. They want the shape of it, the costume, not the weight. A merchant comes to the village now. He sells little statues, miniature Thor hammers, tiny ravens carved from bone. He calls them protection charms. You ask him where he learned the symbols. He says, just tradition. Then he winks. You say nothing. Later, you bury one of the statues at the edge of the grove. You don't know if it means anything, but you whisper anyway. Don't let this become empty. You feel the ground shift slightly beneath your hand. A tremble, a sigh dot, or just your imagination. Still, you smile. Because even if the stories change, even if your name fades, even if the gods forget your voice, the earth remembers weight. And you have walked heavy for a long time. You no longer count your winters, not because you've lost track, but because the years don't feel like markers anymore. They feel like dust, soft, inevitable, quiet. You wake with the sun now, not because you must, but because your body no longer lets you sleep past the light. You eat less, speak less, feel more. The sacred still exists, but it's tired, like an old wolf who no longer howls, but still watches from the tree line. The grove is overgrown. Children dare each other to step into it. Some do, nothing happens, and that's the danger. It's not the curses, not the spirits, not the storms. It's the silence. When the sacred stops speaking, it isn't because it's gone. It's because it's listening. You still visit the tree, the one that leans, the one with your name carved into its side. You place your hand on it every time. It's always warm, but lately it feels different. Not angry, just distant. Like it remembers too much. One day you find a charm tied to a branch. Bright string, polished wood, modern, decorative, soulless. You remove it, bury it in the earth, whisper an apology. That night, it rains harder than it has in months. You take that as forgiveness. You walk slower now, not from pain, but from reverence. Every path feels final. Every rock feels like a memory. You begin to say thank you to everything, to your cup, to your fire, to the sky. Even when it gives nothing, you don't know when you started. But now you can't stop. It's not superstition, it's not habit, it's recognition. The sacred isn't in the grand things. It's in the water that doesn't spill, the blanket that smells like smoke, the footstep that doesn't echo. You remember a story the Sakona once told you, that the gods don't live in halls of gold or clouds of thunder. They live in the pause between your breath, in the quiet after your name is called, in the heat that stays in the bed even after you leave it. You didn't understand it then. Now it feels like the only thing that matters. You stop praying in words. You start praying with your hands, with your walking, with the way you sit still long enough for the birds to stop fearing you. One day, you find a boy crying near the river. He doesn't know why. He says he woke up scared and the trees were too loud. You sit with him, say nothing. When he calms, he asks if he can visit your home. You let him. He returns the next day. Brings a feather. Says it felt like it was waiting for something. You nod, take it, place it in your bowl of salt. He doesn't know what that means. You don't explain, because some sacred things aren't passed down. They're recognized. You begin to write your name less often. Instead, you carve silence, lines, shapes, emptiness. You want to be remembered, but not clung to. You want to be felt, not quoted. The sacred is still here, but it walks slowly now, and so do you. The first thing you let go of is the mirror, not that it ever mattered much. You never cared for your reflection, too fogged, too scratched, too honest. But one morning, you catch your own eyes and don't recognize them. Not because they look different, but because they look tired of looking. So you stop checking. You stop counting to meals, steps, days. Time folds in on itself, becomes circular. You wake, you breathe, you rest, you listen. Your body is softer now, not from weakness, but from the weight of memory. Asterisk scars that used to burn now just hum. Bones don't break, they creak like floorboards in an old house. You begin to sort your belongings, not to clean, to honor. You touch every item. Some you remember where they came from, others you don't, and that's how you know they mattered most. The forgotten ones are the ones you truly used, lived through. You start wrapping things, your cup, with the chip from when your brother made you laugh too hard, a comb you never liked but always kept, a feather from the boy who cried by the river. You don't hide them, you place them gently in corners, not buried, not displayed, just ... waiting. You begin to write, not a story, not instructions, just a list of things you wish someone had told you sooner, that sometimes silence is an answer, that the dead are always listening, that fear isn't something to avoid, but something to walk beside, that dreams are not just dreams, that the gods are quieter than we'd like, but louder than we admit. You don't sign it, you fold it, place it under a stone near the hearth. You walk to the grove again. The tree is older, thicker, hollow at the base. You press your hand to it and feel ... a pulse. Or maybe your own. You whisper thanks, not for life, for weight, for having been heavy enough to matter. You leave behind a lock of your hair, wrapped in thread, tied with salt, just like your grandmother taught you on the way home. You stop at the river, kneel, drink. The water tastes exactly the same as it did when you were a child. Cold, sharp, alive. You laugh, not loud, but deep. The boy visits again. He brings a shell, says he heard music in it once. You tell him that's because he was listening, right? He asks if you're dying. You say, I'm finishing. He nods, as if he already knew. The next morning, you don't light the fire. You sit by the window. The wind doesn't move, but the world still shifts. You feel your feet pressing into the floor, your breath against your teeth, your pulse in your throat, and something opens. Not a door, not a memory, a space where endings go, where names are placed before they are forgotten. You lie down, not because you're tired, but because the ground is ready. You place both hands over your stomach, like you're holding something small, like you're preparing to let go. And you wait, not for death, for stillness, for the moment just before. Sleep comes like a tide, not sudden, not soft. It rises, pulls at the edges of your thoughts, lifts you from the room where your body rests into something without walls, without names. You are not afraid. You have dreamed all your life of wolves, of trees, of rivers with backward currents. You know this place, but this dream is not. Like the others, it begins in silence. The kind of silence that lives beneath silence. The space between heartbeats, between words, between stars. Then a sound, a single breath, not yours, not anyone's, just breath. You open your eyes, though they were never closed. You were standing, not floating, not falling. Ground beneath you, but no earth. Sky above you, but no stars. In front of you, the tree, the one you've always known. It has followed you, it seems, or perhaps you've always been here. Its bark is ash and shadow. Its leaves are made of memories, yours and others. You step forward, not walking, just arriving. The tree speaks, not with words, with feeling. It shows you everything. Your first breath, your last mistake. The bowl your mother filled with salt. The axe you buried. The look your sister gave you when she thought you were asleep. And something else, something deeper. A moment you forgot. You, as a child, hiding beneath the table during a storm. Hearing your father pray, not to the gods, but to his own hands. You understand now. The gods were never far. They were in the gesture, in the holding, in the carrying, in the making. The tree shows you your name, not as a word, but as a sound, carved into the wind. It echoes once, then fades. You feel no sadness, only recognition. A door appears, not a door like in houses. A door of breath, of sleep. Behind it, stillness, weightlessness, light or darkness, or neither. Before you cross, you turn, you see the boy, the one who cried near the river. He is older now, sitting beneath your tree, listening. You smile and leave him a sound, a soft, steady hum. No melody, just presence. You step through the door, and everything becomes water. You are not drowning, you are dissolving. You are not vanishing. You are becoming part of something too large to name. The final image, a feather drifting in frost. A wolf, watching from a hill, a stone, warm beneath the fire. Then nothing, not absence, not loss, just completion. You are gone, but not in the way that fire consumes. Not in the way rivers erase. Not even in the way names fade. You are gone like a scent in a room where no one enters. Gone like warmth in a blanket folded too long. Gone like the impression left by a stone after it's been lifted. What remains is not you, but it is shaped. By you, your house still stands. The door still creaks, always twice. The hearth still holds ash, stubborn and grey. Your chair remains slightly closer to the window than the others. No one moves it. They don't know why the boy, now a young man, visits often. He doesn't say much. Sometimes he sweeps the floor. Sometimes he lights the fire and watches it burn all the way down. He finds the bowl of salt, finds the feather, finds the list you left beneath the stone. He doesn't read it at first. He places it on the table, sits with it, waits. 3 days. Later, he opens it and weeps, not for you, for the shape of you, the weight of the silence you carried. He begins to ask questions, not out loud, but in the way he walks, in the way he stops beside certain trees and listens longer than necessary. He begins to hear the wind differently. It doesn't call your name, but it hums a rhythm that matches your breathing. He begins to see you in the places you left behind, in the way the axe never rusted, in the corner of the room where spiders never spin, in the way birds land near the threshold, pause, then leave again, as if warned. Others notice, too. They stop mocking the old stories. They stop laughing at offerings. Someone leaves a bowl of milk near the tree. No one claims it, no one drinks it. But the next morning, the bowl is empty, and the ground around it is warm. The sacred is returning, not loudly, not quickly, but it remembers the path, and you helped clear it. You are not a ghost, not a spirit, not even a name whispered in fear. You are weight, presence, a memory that doesn't demand attention, only space. The boy, no the man, begins carving, not runes, not words, shapes, circles, lines, breath. He says nothing, but his hands remember you. You don't visit him, but sometimes the fire leans toward him when he speaks, and when he asks, was it enough? The wind shifts, the house creaks, and a pebble rolls from the table to the floor. That's the answer. Not yes, not no, but movement. The world does not stop when you go. It stumbles, then adjusts, then continues. The sun rises with no memory of who stood beneath it the day before. The river flows with no concern for whose ashes it once carried. The stars blink, not out of grief, but out of rhythm. But the world without you is not the same. It is quieter in some places, heavier in others. The bench near the well remains slightly tilted. No one knows why. A field where your footprints once marked. Frost grows strangely uneven crops. A child born 3 winters after your passing cries only when held near the grove. No one says your name often, but everyone feels it. You are not a hole, you are a shift. A corner of the village leans differently. A window that once fogged every morning now stays clear. Someone finds a stone shaped like your tooth. They keep it in their pocket for luck. Not knowing why, stories begin to resurface. Not about you, about things you knew. The tree with red bark, the axe that sings, the house where the fire never fully dies. They are told differently now. Less fear, more awe. The boy, the man, the one who still visits, becomes a kind of bridge. He doesn't claim to speak with the dead. He doesn't claim to know the old ways. But when someone is lost, he's the one they ask for. When a dream feels too real, they tell it to him. When a bird lands on a windowsill and stares too long, he is the one who listens. He never says it out loud, but he feels it, the shape of you in the quiet. Your axe is never found. Your comb is buried beneath a stone. Your list becomes illegible. With time, but no one throws it away. They build a new house near where yours once stood. Not too close, not too different, but they do not touch your tree. No one is told not to. They simply don't. A child draws circles in the dirt one day. When asked why, she says, "Because I remembered them." She doesn't know who them is. You do. The sacred does not vanish. It slips between cracks, hides in folds, waits. You are part of that now. Not as presence, not as ghost, but as current, moving beneath the floorboards of reality, shifting the dreams of those who still believe, or almost do, in spring. Someone finds a small feather lodged in a crack near the hearth. It smells faintly of ash and pine. They leave it where it is, because in a world without you, you are still everywhere. It starts with a mistake. Someone calls you by the wrong name, not with malice, not with mockery, just error. They mean you, but they say someone else. A name close enough, a sound familiar, but not yours, and no one corrects them. That's how memory fades, not with silence, with substitution. You feel it happen not as a wound, but as a loosening, like a knot untied, like breath escaping between sentences. Soon, they stop saying your name at all. They start saying the old one, the man who lived with the tree, the one who listened to birds. You are still there, but scattered. A laugh here, a habit there, a fear passed from grandparent to child without explanation. Don't leave the bread uncovered at night. Don't carve when the wind is still. Never sleep with your mouth open. They follow the rules. They don't remember why. And that is the beginning of story. Your house becomes a ruin, then a foundation, then a patch of wildflowers that only bloom after storms. Your fire bowl is used to store dried herbs. Your list, now unreadable, is tucked into the spine of a book no one finishes. Your axe is whispered about, buried somewhere deep, they say. A child dreams of it, draws it with coal on the wall. No one knows how they knew the shape. They say it's a gift. You watch from nowhere and everywhere. The boy who once cried becomes an old man. He forgets your face, but remembers the sound your steps made on wood. He mimics it with his cane. The rhythm follows him. Someone writes a song not about you, but it sounds like you. A low hum, a steady beat, a chorus that mentions the tree that leans. It spreads, sacred returns, not as fact, but as rhythm. Offerings are made again, quiet ones, unexplained. A feather tucked beneath a stone. Milk left on a windowsill. Names whispered to fire before sleep. You are not in the stories. Not clearly, but you are the reason they continue. Someone tells of a man who walked without fear. Another says he talked to ghosts. One says he carved silence. Another says he vanished into a dream. All of them are right. All of them are wrong. Because stories aren't about truth. They're about weight, shape, impact. You were heavy. You pressed into the world. It remembers, and now it retells. Not to preserve you, to feel you. And as long as it does, you haven't truly left. No one knows when it happened exactly. The moment you stopped being a man and became a myth. It was gradual, a breath held across generations, a shadow stretched across memory. At first, you were the old one who listened, then the man who heard trees speak, then just the listener. They stopped saying your name, but they started carving your shape on wood, on bone, on doors meant to keep the night outside, a curved line like an ear, a circle like a bowl, a small cross beneath like roots. They don't explain it, they just know it feels safe. Some say you weren't human, that you were part spirit, part wind, that you could turn into a fox, or a crow, or even a whisper. If the moment was right, they say you never ate. that your fire never needed wood, that you spoke only when the world asked a question worth answering. One story says you lived for 200 years, aging only when the moon was full. Another says you died and came back 3 times, once as a tree, once as a blade, once as a song no one can remember the words to. Children are warned. Don't lie where the listener can hear. Don't bury metal near the leaning tree. Don't follow the sound of your name if no one is around. You are not feared, but you are not exactly loved either. You are respected, the way fire is respected, the way cliffs are, the way dreams are, just before they turn. Your tree still stands, taller than ever. Its bark now so dark it absorbs light. Its base wrapped in small tokens, feathers, buttons, teeth, old coins with holes punched through them. No one touches the tree, not even the brave ones. They say if you listen closely, you can hear your own future when the wind passes through its leaves. A woman once slept beneath it. She woke with white hair and a new name. She won't speak of what she saw, but she walks, barefoot now, even in winter. The myth of you becomes useful. People invoke your image to calm storms, to ward off betrayal, to bless births. A healer hums your name while grinding herbs. A widow whispers your rune into her stew. A hunter wears a string with one of your carvings found in the woods where no one should have been. They say your spirit watches crossroads, that you decide which travelers return home, that you smile only for those who have truly lost everything. They say a man once lit a fire the wrong way, and the flame burned blue. He died in his sleep that night, peaceful. They called it, listeners, mercy. Of course, none of this is what you were. You were a boy who dreamed of wolves, who feared the wind, who carved to remember, who whispered to trees because you didn't want to forget how to speak to the world. But myths don't care for facts. They care for shape, for resonance, for how a name feels in the mouth when the night is too quiet. And so you grow beyond your bones, beyond your breath, beyond your truth. You become something larger and softer and more dangerous. The myth of you lives in footsteps near graves, in the stillness before thunder, in the silence that wraps around someone who has just remembered something they were not supposed to forget. You are no longer here, but you are also everywhere. It begins with a question. Who was he really? It comes from a girl, 10 winters old, curious but not reverent. She asks it while stirring soup, staring into the pot like it might offer an answer. No one replies, because no one knows. They know the shape of you, the stories, the warnings, but not the man. And myths do not like questions. They start to crack. When poked, soon others ask, too, did he really live in the woods? Why would someone talk to trees? Wasn't he just a man with no family? The answers vary, change, contradict. Someone says you were a warrior turned hermit. Another says you were a spirit who took human form. A third claims you were 3 different men, confused into one name. The myth splinters. It doesn't vanish. It fractures, multiplies. You become versions of yourself in one story. You're kind, gentle, a healer. In another, you guard a door to the underworld. In yet another, you're a punishment sent by the gods to test the village's patience. Your shape remains, but the soul shifts. The old tree begins to rot, just a little. A crack forms near the base. Moss grows where it never did before. Someone cuts a branch, nothing happens. They laugh, offerings become jokes. A doll with eyes scratched out. A rock painted like a face. A burnt feather, no lightning strikes. No wind howls. And that's worse than anger, its absence. The sacred isn't feared anymore. It's ignored. Your myth becomes wallpaper. Decorative. Dull. They still mention you during certain seasons. They still avoid sleeping directly under the stars. They still pause before entering the grove. But not because of you. Just tradition, empty habit. A child finds your name carved into stone. They trace it. Ask who it belonged to. No one answers. Not because they forgot, because they never knew. And so the myth breaks. Not in fire, not in screams, but in shrugs. A soft ending, a quiet forgetting. The winters grow colder, not crueler, just sharper. The snow falls sooner and stays longer. People walk slower, speak less, listen more. Something in the air has changed, not gone back, not moved forward, shifted, and in this cold, small echoes return, not full stories, not names, but feelings. A man wakes from a dream of a crooked tree. He doesn't know why, but he leaves. Bread by the window. A child sings a tune no one taught them. It ends on a note that feels ... old, like breath left in a jar. Someone swears they saw footprints in the snow leading into the forest, but none coming out. They don't call it you. They don't call it anything, but they leave the fire burning longer. That night, just in case, the tree still stands. Weaker now, hollow in the center, but it stands. One day, lightning does strike it, splits it clean, but no fire takes. The rain is too quick. The flame is only smoke. The village gathers, not to mourn, to wonder. Someone says this was his tree. Another says whose. No one knows, but they do not remove the stump. They build a circle of stones around it. Place a small wooden carving there. A circle, a line, a breath. Not because they believe, because something in them remembers, not facts, not truths, just a feeling. Stone holds cold well. Frost lingers there longer, and when spring finally comes, that circle is the last place to thaw. The children say it's because it listens longer than the rest of the world, and maybe they're right, because even in silence, even in broken myth, even in frost, you echo. It's a play, performed for guests, just before the winter feast. Children in masks, painted faces, fur cloaks too big. They act out a tale. A man who spoke to the wind, who could summon animals with a whisper. He is mocked, feared, then embraced, then lost. A happy ending, a warm fire, a toast. Everyone claps. You are not mentioned by name, but it's you and not Dot. It's a softened version, a mask of a mask. The children laugh where once people would have knelt. The sacred has become performance. The myth has become palatable. This is how memory survives, through dilution. But in one child's eyes, the one who plays the whispering man, something stirs. He doesn't understand why. But when he leaves the stage, he takes a stone from the set with him. He keeps it in his bed, beneath his pillow. He dreams of trees that hum, not in temples, not in names, not even in runes. It hides in gestures, a hand on a doorframe without knocking, a breath before speaking, a pause before crossing, a stream. These moments aren't taught. They're inherited, passed like smoke, like smell, like salt in a pocket. The boy with the stone grows. He forgets the play. He forgets the lines. But he does not forget the shape of the tree in his dream. He sketches it once on the wall of his home. He never tells anyone why. Years later, someone asks, "What does it mean?" He shrugs, but inside, he remembers the hum. And that is enough. You are no longer a name, no longer a myth. You are a pause, a breath, a wait in the room before someone speaks. You are not remembered, but you are still present, and in this way, you survive. It's a market day, busy, loud, ordinary. A woman leans over a stall, choosing fish. She drops one. It thuds, and without thinking, she whispers a word. No one hears it, not even her. But she steps back like something just shifted in her bones. Later, that night, she dreams of a man standing under a tree. He says nothing, only nods, and the wind behind him speaks like breath turned sideways. She wakes, doesn't speak of it, but begins leaving a small bowl of salt by her window each night, just in case. And so it begins again. Not revival, not belief, but instinct, unnamed, unclaimed, but real. Someone touches stone and feels warmth. Someone walks through the grove and hears quiet deepen. Someone lights a fire and it bends to the left. No one says your name, but your name isn't the point anymore. You are not the sound. You are the pull behind it. The reason someone pauses then doesn't know why. And for some, that's enough. The forest is quiet, but not empty. Roots move slowly beneath the frost. Stones lean in certain directions, though no one remembers placing them. Animals avoid one path. Children don't like one hill. The hum is there. Not a sound, not quite. More like a memory trying to form, like the echo of something never said aloud. Sometimes someone hears it. A shepherd, half asleep, stops mid-step. A boy, hiding from chores, looks up and cries without knowing why. A woman drops water and stares as if the puddle said something. These are not visions, not hauntings. They are alignments. Moments when the world folds briefly into what it used to be, when the myth stirs, not to return, but to exhale. You are not returning. You are not watching. You are humming, and the world hums back. It's just a patch of land, flat, plain, good soil, close to the stream, perfect for planting. But no one plants there, not because of a curse, not because of a story, because no one ever really thinks to. They walk past it, talk near it, rest beside it. But when time comes to choose where to build, where to dig, where to live, They all seem to look elsewhere. A man once tried. He staked it, measured it, dug a little, and then, mid-swing of his tool, he stopped, looked around, and packed his things. He couldn't explain why. Said it was the wind. That's how it is with places you once stood. They don't scream, they don't pull. They just hold something too quiet to fight, too strong to ignore. Children say it's where dreams are louder, where time doesn't behave. One day, someone will build there, but not yet. Not until forgetting has grown too deep. Not until silence feels safe again. And even then, they'll hear footsteps behind them for a long while after. It's not your name, it's not your voice. What the wind carries now is less than that, and more. A rhythm, a pause, a single note that matches the beating of a heart that's about to break. It moves through cracks, down chimneys, over rooftops, and into shoes left out too long. It carries a knowing, a presence. Not heavy, but exact. Someone hears it during childbirth. Another hears it just before sleep, the night their father doesn't return. A third hears it while holding a dying dog and doesn't cry. They don't speak of it, because how do you describe something that wasn't sound? Just ... a shift. You once used words, now you use air. A child grows into a man. He walks through snow and stops mid-step, turns his head, listens, nothing, but he smiles. Because something turned with him and didn't need to speak. They don't know you, so they give you names, not your name. Not the one carved into wood and whispered into salt. New ones, invented ones, the watcher in the wind. The soft one, the flame that listens, the man beneath the bark. They argue over them, laugh, speculate. Someone makes a carving, sharp nose, long fingers, empty eyes. They place it near the tree stump. It doesn't look like you, but people nod as if it does. That's enough, because the truth no longer matters, only the feeling of it. You become a shape passed from tongue to tongue, a story smoothed over by too many tellings. Someone starts a ritual, leaves water out in winter, says it's for the one who still breathes cold. No one remembers why. A girl dreams of you, not your face, but your sound. She wakes and hums it until her sister joins in. By spring, a song is born, wordless but persistent. They call it the listening tune. They sing it during storms. No one asks who it's for. They dig to bury a calf, not far, just east of the old tree stump. The shovel stops, not on stone, not on wood, on something softer but immovable. They try again. It won't go deeper. They dig. They'll swear later someone plants onions there. They grow crooked, thick, bitter. They move the garden. The soil isn't cursed. It's just ... settled, as if it once carried something heavy, and now refuses to be disturbed. Children play nearby, but they don't step on that patch. Birds land on it, then leave quickly. Even rain falls more gently there. The ground remembers, not loudly, not angrily, just with density, with weight, and every so often someone kneels there, without knowing why, and feels forgiven. A festival, fire, laughter, ale, masks, Someone tells a story about a spirit, or a ghost, or a god. No one's sure which dot. It sounds familiar. There's a tree, a whisper, a silence that answers questions no one asked. Someone leans forward. I've heard that before, but they haven't. They've heard the shape of it, the rhythm, not the name. Never the name. They laugh. Move on. Dance. But for a brief second, a flicker. You were close, like a breath about to be spoken. And that's the last time. After that, the stories shift too far. The roots rot. The tree stump sinks. You are no longer remembered. Not even misremembered you are. Something else had happened slowly, not like the snapping of a branch, more like the erosion of a path. The wind moves through the forest, but it no longer pauses where you once stood. Birds no longer circle the tree stump. Children no longer hesitate. The stones lose their warmth. The soil grows still. And one day, someone walks straight through your place. No chill, no sound, no shift, just step after step. The world does not shudder. You have been forgotten, truly. No echoes, no hum, no pause. Even the wind has moved on. But somewhere deep beneath frost and ash and bark, something remains. Not you, not memory, but the space where you were, untouched, unspoken, waiting. It's been lifetimes. No one walks the path anymore. No houses nearby. No names left carved. The tree stump is gone. The soil above it flat, packed, silent. But silence has a shape. And eventually, it presses back. It starts with nothing. A stillness to complete, then a tremor, not of earth, of air. A breeze curls in a place that hadn't known movement in centuries. It circles once, lingers, then leaves. Elsewhere, a stone cracks, not loudly, but with purpose. A bird lands on the old hill, looks around, does not flee. Something is waking. Not memory, not myth, possibility. You are not coming back. But the silence that held you is growing restless. And silence, when full, must. Empty dot, she is small, dirt streak, alone, exploring the woods behind the ruins of something she's been told was once important. She kicks stones, hums, pauses, and finds it not a relic, not a shrine, just a curve in the earth. Too smooth, too shaped. She sits, feels warmth beneath her. No reason, she closes her eyes, listens, and hums. A low sound, a note that vibrates her teeth. She doesn't know why she sings it, only that it feels like something that's been waiting to be sung. The wind doesn't shift. The sky doesn't crack. But somewhere deep beneath the soil, something ancient exhales. Not relief. Not awakening, recognition. The first spark. After nothing, she returns. Not for the stump. Not for a story. Just because her feet take her. Others follow. A brother. A dog. A shadow. They don't talk. Not at first, but something makes them keep walking. The same loop. A circle. Always a circle. Without being told. They walk it around that patch of dirt where the grass grows duller. Where the birds quiet down. Someone begins placing things. A twig, a shell, a button. Not because it means something. Because it feels like something. One day, someone brings a drum, plays softly, then stops. Another begins to hum. It is not a song. It is not language. It is a returning. And the path remembers the weight of bare feet. No one teaches it, but the gestures return. A pause before entering the grove. A hand on the chest when the wind picks up. A habit of leaving food uneaten, then burying it under stones. They don't ask why, and that's what makes it real. Because belief doesn't begin with answers. It begins with pattern, with rhythm, with behavior. The girl, older now, leads. Without knowing, she is not priest, not chosen, but her silence gathers people. They sit with her, around her, then apart from her. Together, someone begins carving, not figures, not runes, just marks. Small, even lines around the old patch of land. Circle, a breath, a space. They do not name it. They do not speak of it. But when they pass by, they walk slower, and sometimes, just before they sleep, they feel watched and comforted. The sacred has returned, not as story, but as presence. There is no sign, number, altar, no scripture, only a circle, marked by stones that no one admits Kolakar there. Cleared of leaves, always, even in storm season, people begin to use it, not for worship, but for being Dr. Cry, to rest, to say things aloud when no one else would understand. They do not face one direction. They do not sit in silence. They just gather. When the feeling comes, a man comes once a year, always the same day, brings a feather, leaves it in the center, says nothing, leaves no one asks. And that is how the sacred lives now, in mystery preserved. Through gentle refusal, children are taught to avoid stepping in the center, not because it's bad, because it's full of what? They don't know, but they feel it in their teeth when they pass by, like a low hum, too deep to describe. One night there's a storm, wind, rain, collapse, a tree falls, not yours, a roof, caves, not yours. But near the circle, all remains still. The next morning, the people gather, unplanned, wordless. The girl, now old, steps into the center. First time anyone does, she sings. It is not a melody. It is a vibration, low, even, almost like breath through cracked lips. The others do not join. They do not echo. But when she stops, they nod, as if something important just ended or began. A boy walks home, whispering that sound under his breath. It will live in him, and in those who hear him hum, and slowly, without force, without books, without leaders, the sound begins to reshape the world. Not loud, not fast, but steadily. Like roots through stone, time moves, and people do too. They build, again. Not on your ground, still no one dares, but around it, a village, quiet, simple roofs, soft fires, a rhythm of living that seems older than it should. No one teaches the circle, but everyone knows not to speak inside it. They use it for silence, for breath, for standing still. It becomes part of the seasons. In winter, it gathers snow, but never ice. In spring, its grass grows slow and dark. In summer, it hums with bees that don't sting. In autumn, it smells like ash and salt. No books explain it. No one writes its rules, but it is known, and so it is kept. Past like a look between elders, a pause before a meal, a step taken back rather than forward. Your memory has vanished, but your echo has adapted. You are not spoken, you are lived. Shapes repeat the circle, the three marks carved in doorways, the placement of a bowl, the curve of a staff leaned just so by the fire. No one says why, no one asks, but these choices endure, and when they change homes, they take the habits with them. They don't call them rituals, they call them the way things are. That is your shape now, a pattern, a feeling of correct placement, of safety in certain alignments, of warmth in a specific order of doing. You are not remembered, but your shape is followed, in kitchens, in songs hummed absent-mindedly, in the way. Someone listens when no one else does, not sacred, not mythic, simply ... Part of the world, like soil, like breath, like the soft hollow left behind after something heavy is lifted, and never filled again. It doesn't know why. The world, not just the village, not just the trees, but the world itself, shifts around the memory of your presence. Not the name, not the man, but the indentation, like water curves around a stone long since removed. Paths bend, wind pauses, animals hesitate not to honor you, to accommodate something they don't realize is missing. The shape of you has no voice now, only gravity, something that pulls, gently, invisibly. On moments of stillness, a woman holds her breath before lighting a candle. A child closes their eyes when thunder rolls in. A farmer waits one extra beat before harvesting the first fruit of the season. No one told them to. No one remembers the first to do so. But the rhythm continues. The sacred is no longer a place, or a name, or even a circle. It is the pattern of existence, brushing against a presence it can no longer explain. Not loudly, not clearly, but fully. You echo in pauses, in breath held, in steps delayed. You echo in the silence before fire crackles, in the weight of stories told without meaning, in the choices made out of instinct, not logic. You do not return. You are not reborn. You are not rediscovered, and still you remain in warmth that lingers a little too long, in paths never built over, in a single note hummed without melody, but full of memory. You were forgotten, then reshaped, then emptied and still. You echo quietly, completely, until you are nothing, and that too is enough.